Hey guys, Maybelline wanted to say hi really quick. If you guys didn't know, just a fun fact about me, Mabel is my child. We love her dearly, and she is the best girl in the whole wide world. I love her. So today I'm going to talk all about one of my most requested topics, like, ever. Mabel's right here too, so if you see a head up. Alright, 1 second. Let's go. Alright, today I'm going to be talking about something that was super highly requested, and that is food trucks. Just for some backstory, we got married August 1st, 2020, so we got married during COVID, and food trucks actually worked out very, very well because everything had to be served like by somebody. You couldn't have like a buffet line or anything like that. So it was very COVID safe just because the people who were preparing it were serving it individually to everybody. It wasn't like a free-for-all with like different spatulas and spoons and stuff like that. So if you're having a wedding soon, I definitely recommend food trucks for that reason alone. But I'm going to give you guys some of the tips that I have about working with food trucks, why we loved it, why we didn't love it so much, and hopefully just give you guys a big overview of our experience. So here is all of like the nitty-gritty information that you guys are probably wondering and all of the questions I get asked. We had about 130 guests, and then we also fed all of our vendors. If you don't know, I'm a wedding photographer, so I highly recommend feeding all of your vendors. This can be your bartenders, your wedding coordinator, your venue people, anyone that is working the event. In my opinion, should be fed. Photo, video, DJ, those people definitely need to be fed. And it's even nice if you have a seat for us, but I know that's not possible all the time. In grand total, we probably fed about 140 people. We had 2 food trucks, we had a taco truck, and we had a barbecue truck. What we ended up doing was very similar to the buffet line style. Our DJ dismissed people by table, and then they went up, they stood in line, and then they got served their food. We just narrowed it down to 2 or 3 options so our guests weren't like just staring at this giant menu. It ended up making the process go really quick because everyone knew what they were gonna get right when they arrived at the window. The cooking time really was very quick too because they only had to prep 1 or 2 different types of meals. So I think from the time I ordered to the time I got my food, it was like a minute and a half. We did not have any sort of ticket system. You can do something like that where they have to turn in the ticket for the food to get to them so they can't go to both trucks. We didn't really care. It was cheap enough to where we didn't care if people visited 2 trucks. We just didn't advertise that. I think probably only like 10 or 11 people actually went up and like got food from the other truck. In grand total, we ended up spending about $1,400 on food. It really depended on which truck we were talking about, but it ended up being about $10 a plate, and for wedding food, that is a steal. A lot of people have asked me about the payment and kind of how that whole transaction works. Our planner, Aspen, I will link her down below. She was phenomenal. She found us the trucks, and then she actually facilitated a lot of our communication, so I definitely would recommend having a planner, but this is what I dealt with. So we had to put a deposit down on the trucks for them to be at our event. This is pretty standard. We just gave them like an estimate of how many people they would be feeding, and then we cut that in half, and that was the deposit. Each truck will have their own rules, and you just kind of follow what they usually do. We also had on our wedding website, this was actually a really late addition, so people who RSVP'd right away didn't have this option, but I went in and changed it really quick. We said, like, would you rather have a barbecue truck or rather have a taco truck, so at least we could gauge like how many people were interested in each one. It ended up being pretty close to 50-50. I think there was like 55% of people wanted the barbecue and then like 45% of people wanted the taco. That was kind of how we figured out the deposit. For the rest of the payment, both trucks just took a tally of the amount of things that they sold, and then they charged our cards at the end of the evening. They already had the cards on file, and then I actually gave my card to our planner just so she had it in case there was any issue. Okay, so that was all of the logistical things about the trucks. Now I'm gonna get into the things I really liked and then the things that I did not like so much. So the first thing I loved was the fact that it was super cheap and super good. I feel like so many people were talking about how delicious the food was, and at $10 a plate, you cannot beat it. I know this varies per state. We're in Ohio, and so that's how much our food trucks were. Something like New York or California may have different rates, but overall, I think food trucks are gonna be cheaper than like your standard plated meal. Number 2 was that it's just fun. Now, on our wedding, it did rain, and so I had envisioned having the trucks like out, we would get like pictures with them, yada yada yada. We ended up pulling the trucks really close to the barn because if it rained again, we didn't want people to have to walk out in the rain. So my vision didn't come like fully to fruition. However, I still think it was really fun and pretty unique unique compared to other weddings I've been to. Number 3 is that you're supporting a small business. First off, the taco truck lady we worked with was phenomenal. I will link both of their names below, the trucks we worked with, but she was so sweet. She was a believer, and me and my husband are Christians, so that was really cool. And she was just a pleasure to work with, so kind, and I just absolutely loved working with her. The 4th thing I did really like is that we could go up and get seconds if we wanted. I don't think I did. I really don't remember a whole lot about our wedding day, to be honest. I don't think I went up and got seconds, but people could if they really wanted to, and I think that's something that traditionally you can't do at weddings. Also, something that was really good is that the food comes out hot. It was just made. I think there's a lot of pros to it. I really enjoyed it, but there's definitely some things to be cautious of and things that didn't quite go right about our day. So the first thing was a pretty big thing, and one of our trucks was an hour late. This was a huge headache for our planner and kind of us, but she really dealt with most of it. Our planner could not get a hold of them for 25 minutes or 30 minutes, so we ended up just extending cocktail hour, and we got all of our pictures taken, and then we stayed in the house for a little bit, so no one really knew what was going on. It just seemed like we were off taking pictures for a longer time. But behind the scenes, she was coming up to us every 5 minutes, just I still can't get a hold of them, what do you want me to do, blah, blah, blah. And she is trying her hardest to find this truck. Nobody knows where it's at. So we ended up entering the reception, and we cut the cake, and then we ended up doing a lot of the things that we were waiting to do first. So we played the shoe game where you hold up your partner's shoe based on the questions you ask. That was supposed to be after dinner, but we bumped it up to before dinner. I'm pretty sure we also did a few other things. I think we I know we cut the cake, I know we did the shoe game. I don't think we did our formal dances, but we just tried to put everything possible in place of when we were supposed to be eating dinner, because we didn't want everyone to just be sitting there what do we do? Finally, the truck came, and we ended up getting a lot of money off because our planner was very adamant that we were not paying them at the end of that night because of the big mishap. So my point in saying all this is definitely work with trucks that have done weddings before and that you trust. This is a pretty reputable restaurant that we worked with, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out. There was miscommunication somewhere. But if that's the worst thing that went wrong on my wedding day, then I'll count that as a win. The second thing to be aware of is that a lot of food trucks haven't worked events like weddings before. Oftentimes they work fairs and work at parks and stuff where you're not having this massive rush of people all at once. So definitely talk to them, make sure that they're comfortable working your event. A lot of food trucks have done weddings before, and so they already know what they're gonna do, but just make sure to ask. The next tip is to make sure that you have a vegan or vegetarian option. This is pretty self-explanatory, but you want everyone at your event to be able to eat. The last thing to just keep in mind is that most of these are small businesses. One food truck we had, Marie, the owner, was the person. She did all the business transactions, she basically made the food, she did all of this stuff, and she only had a few staff members working with her. So just be patient. Know that you might not get the same level of communication as you would a regular catering company, just because a lot of these, like I said, are 1 or 2 business owners, and they're just trying to get all their stuff done. I'm also going to do a rapid fire Q&A of just some of the questions people asked over on my TikTok. The first question is, did we pay or did our guests pay? We paid. Like I said before, we paid half up front, and then they charged our cards at the end of the night for the rest. The next question is, did it take a really long time? Honestly, I don't think it took any longer than a regular buffet line would. I would say total from start to finish of dinner, it was about an hour, and that's usually the allotted time for dinner at weddings anyway. And we ended up doing our dances and stuff right when the last people got their food, so it was speeding up the process. The next question is, do you have to pay the workers in the truck? We didn't do that. We did tip a little bit on top of the price that we were charged, but we didn't pay each individual worker. I don't know if we should have or not, but we didn't. Did guests wait in line long? No, I think probably guests waited in line 5 or 6 minutes, and then it took 2 or 3 minutes to get their meal. Also, the line was right next to the bar, so people could also grab drinks while they were waiting in line. The next question is, how big is too big of a wedding to do food trucks? I don't think there's a too big. I think if you have the appropriate amount of trucks, then it'll be fine. Our planner recommended 1 truck per 60 or so people. So we had about 130, we went with 2 trucks, and I think that worked out totally fine. And the last question I'll answer is, how do you find the food trucks? This one's a little tricky. I had a really hard time with this. So like I said before, our planner ended up helping a ton when it comes to finding the food trucks. And our venue also was in the middle of nowhere. straight up cornfields. So we had a little bit of a hard time finding trucks that would travel to our location. We ended up doing one truck from Toledo, which is where we live, and they just drove down and we paid mileage. And then the other truck, our planner referred us to. So I would say just doing a quick Google search like food trucks in your location. You can also look on Facebook. A lot of food trucks will have a Facebook page and not an official website just because they are a small business. So I think that is everything about food trucks. Overall, we had a great experience and I definitely would do it again, and I would recommend to any bride out there that wants something a little less traditional than just a plated meal. As always, please toss this video a like and subscribe to my channel. Also, if you have any more food truck questions, definitely comment them down below. Also, if you have any video requests, leave them down below and I'll do my best to get to them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye!